Welcome to EdTech AM with me, Abid Patel.
And me, Meagan Alfano. Every episode, we rip up the script and take a fun look at tech, education, life, and everything in between. So jump on in and join us.
Hello.
So fancy now.
I know. We've got an intro and everything.
Leveled up. This is great.
Yeah, clearly the budget has gone beyond our wildest dreams, hasn't it?
Oh, I know. I hope everybody else is excited about that because I was dancing the whole time.
Indeed, absolutely. And we really pulled out the stops. So thank you, Canva, for for helping out with the intro, which was great. Meagan, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. It's been a busy blur of a month or whatever since we last presented, and then also we were just talking before about how it's just been a busy blur of a few months since back to school this academic year. It's been utterly crazy.
I know. Every time I look up, it's like 2 weeks later. I was like, actually, I was gone. I was finishing up some Christmas shopping yesterday. And I was kind of like moseying on, like I've got time and I'm sort of planning. We're having Christmas with my whole family at our house this year. And then all of a sudden it hit me that it was like the 12th of December and everybody was coming to my home in 10 days. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I don't plan in advance well. So this has been a bit of a challenge for me I don't actually even really know what's happening. It's probably going to be a 21st of December kind of problem for future Meg.
Indeed, always procrastination for the win. Indeed, but I was just thinking, like, looking at the fact that we're in the middle of December now, like it was literally feels like yesterday that we were back to school in September, and then it was kind of like, okay, fine, we've got to get through these few months before the big break and stuff, and it's just like I don't know where they've gone. We're gonna look or try to look back at the rest of the year, but I can't remember what we did yesterday, sort of thing.
I know, it's so true. And we're on episode 4. Like you're talking about getting ready for the beginning of school and everything. Like we were doing episode 1 in August. We were just talking about that before, and now it's December and we're on episode 4. We're just doing these things and life is happening in between, I think.
And the world is happening in between, and how busy has it been in the world? It's been utterly crazy.
Yeah, it keeps giving us things to talk about, so that's good.
Always. And on the subject of things to talk about closer to home, we want to shout out the Google Certified Innovator Academies. So they've finally finished for this year. It was wonderful to have all the Innovator Academies back, but the final 2 academies of this year just ended. So shout out to, let's start from the start of the year. Chicago 24, and then you had Sao Paulo, Seoul, and finally Amsterdam, which made up the in-person academies. And of course, then you had VIA 24, which was the virtual academy. So welcome to all of the new innovators to the Innovate family.
So nice to have in-person academies back. It's just, I'm so happy that they get to feel what we felt. Yes. And you were a coach for one of the virtual academies. I didn't get to experience that, but you said that was great as well.
That was VIA 20. So back in 2020, just off, exactly a year after we'd done our Innovator in London. And that was a very special academy because that was the one it was the first virtual academy. It was the one single academy across multiple time zones.
Cool.
I think we had like 74 innovators for the whole academy. It was phenomenal. Over 8-week period, really special time. And I know there's been several virtual academies since, and it was great to have that in addition to the in-person experiences again this year.
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of like it's special in its own way, right? Because we've experienced the in-person and that 3 intensive day sort of celebration, and that PD is so fantastic. But to have the accessibility of the virtual academy, and also just to have access network-wise to so many different educators, like you said, like across the different time zones, like that's cool in its own way for sure.
Yeah, and I'm so envious of those who got to experience it again this year, and also all of the new virtual innovators coming through as well, because I feel like the community is just really thriving at the moment. I hardly knew any innovators before I did London 19, and now just seeing I think there's about 2,200 of us worldwide. But to know so many of those people in that community is just amazing. And it's always really special just getting together, seeing other people who've kind of gone through that experience with you, so they know why we're so enthusiastic about it, because they've experienced what we've felt. And it's great. And I can't wait for it to be back again in future years, and get some more innovators on board as part of the community.
Yeah, just keep scooping them up.
Yes, but news from you, Meagan. I heard you are now a mentor.
I get to be a mentor. I'm so excited. Oh my gosh, this has not happened for me yet. And finally, I was selected by one of the Amsterdam Google Innovators. Shout out to Meagan. And I'm so excited. I haven't heard a project yet, but we're going to be meeting next week. And I can't wait. And you are currently mentoring.
Yes, I am mentoring Ashley from, she's from New Jersey, but she was part of the Chicago Academy. And we've had quite a few meetings, but we connect regularly on chat. And she's doing great. Her project is really exciting, and I can't wait to see how it develops over the coming year.
Yes, that's awesome. Before we move on, I do have one more shout out that I would like to just show everybody. Check out this baby. This is a mug that my 6-year-old daughter created in her art class that she does on Saturday mornings. And she told me that I get the extreme privilege of showing it to the internet today. So
that is brilliant.
And I would also like to, she made this out of clay, and then her art teacher put it through the kiln and like glazed it. But the painting is all her. It's fantastic. And it does, in fact, hold liquid. I can confirm.
I mean, I would say that is impressive to have just the sturdiness of the fact that it holds a liquid.
I was a little nervous. Yeah. Design-wise, I mean, it's fabulous, but it's also functional. So we have both. So that's, yes, I will be sipping from Fox today.
And I think that really that sparks some really interesting conversation about the fact that your daughter is going to art school and doing these things, really bringing back those almost lost skills now. You barely hear of like children playing with clay and building, at least in the UK. Like I remember we did it in art, and we were just talking before the show how my school actually had a kiln in the art studio, which I don't know any schools that even have the space to do that now, let alone the budget, and all of the health and safety craziness that goes on around that. But the fact that the children get to experience this, and that just, it's all about creativity, right? And sparking that passion for design and creation, and that is brilliant to see that. So congratulations to Emmy.
Yeah, congratulations to Emmy. And you know what? I completely agree with that as well, because in school, I feel like, also being a teacher, one of the things that I noticed so often, I taught art kind of loosely just because I was a classroom teacher who did everything. But sometimes I would find that the art in the hallways was so beautiful, but we noticed that a lot of it looks the same sometimes, right? And it's really prescribed. And there are so many teachers that do choice art so beautifully, and they give the kids their choice in what they want to create. But shout out to Emmy's art teacher as well, because she gives them a template, she teaches them the skills, and she gives them complete reign and freedom to go against the grain and change things and add their own colors. And there's never any talk about how things have to be or how things should be. And I just think that that's so important as they're growing. And she's just like built so much confidence in herself as an artist. And yeah, I just think that that's so cool. And it's so important. And I think sometimes it's overlooked. So shout out to Emmy's art teacher as well.
I can't remember where I heard this or read this, but it was almost I read somewhere on socials where there was a push here in the UK for the government to really look into building up, well, really looking into the curriculum and the way we do the core curriculum here in the UK, and how there needs to be much more of a heavier focus on life skills and just understanding. You know, it's that constant thing. You know, I probably said it on the previous episode, and I'm going to say it again. It's that constant meme we always come across, right? Where I've just left, you know, I've just graduated from university and I don't know anything about life. I don't know anything about taxes. I don't know anything about marriage. I don't know anything about politics, but I know Pythagoras' theorem.
Yes.
Right? And really bringing those soft, almost, I think the word soft skills are not, I don't like the phrase anymore, because it's not soft skills, life skills.
Essential skills.
The amount of times I troll my daughters with, you know what, you're lacking life smarts, right?
Yes.
The fact that, right, we have gone shopping. Now I'm in the driver's seat because you can't drive, but I want you to take me home, right?
Yeah.
So I want you to guide me home. And they don't have the foggiest idea, right? Like, let's get out Google Maps. No, wait a minute. No, we won't use the tech. Let's use the skills of how you don't use Google Maps to get home from school, right? So let's get home from shopping, right? How do we go? And it's just understanding that those life elements. And I think it's so important. We've got a chap here in the UK who's called Martin Lewis. He's got a website, moneysavingexpert.com, and he does all of the the money saving tips for the population. And one of the things he's been pushing heavy on is for financial literacy learning in schools. Because let's be honest, right? As much as we want to hide it, money makes the world go round, right? And I think these are the skills that people need, that the young people need in their lives, to understand that this is what's going to be important, right? When we go, I'm not trying to discount from English, maths, and science. Absolutely not. No. Those have to be there. Those are soft skills, let's say, right? But that doesn't mean it just has to be about that. And then we could probably do an entire, maybe like 3 episodes on exams and all of that stuff. Right? We won't go there. But how, you know, my daughter's starting year 10, which will be her beginning of her GCSE year, and going on to year 11. And an awful lot of that is going to be just exam practice, right? How to pass the exam. And it's that question of, are we nurturing our children into adults, or are we just making them into exam drones?
Yes, it's true. And you know, you're talking about those soft skills, or whatever you want to call them. There's so many, like if the science, math, English curriculum is done correctly, there should be so many opportunities to integrate the two of them together. Right? So I think as educators too, we need to look for those openings. So if you're teaching something in math, can you bring in financial literacy? If you're teaching something in English, can you bring in some of those presentation skills, and also being adaptive, I think, to the changing world. So we're going to talk a lot about AI, right? And the things that, like, presentation skills, how we learned them in school, are different than presentation skills and how they are even today, never mind in the future. So being adaptive in that is really important too. And not just being like, well, I learned this and I turned out okay. Being like, okay, what do they need to know now? How has this evolved over time?
I still remember presentations being holding up A4 pieces of paper, right? And like, you know, literally doing the meme thing. It was like, flick one
like
paper.
Love Actually?
Yeah, exactly that. And the fact that, you know, when PowerPoint first came out, it was like PowerPoint was just having a PowerPoint was just a fascinating presentation.
Yes.
Now it's almost like you can't do a presentation without having some form of digital behind you.
It's
right?
true.
But then the digital
Don't
doesn't
read
make.
off of it.
That's another thing. The amount of I don't know if it's just the fact that I've tried to do a lot more research and learning into my own public speaking. I'm very grateful that I get the opportunity to speak a lot, but I'm a very big critic of myself, and I'm constantly trying to learn how to improve that. And one of the things I always see is about have your digital presentation, absolutely, but don't use it as a script. And the amount of, ironically, school presentations that I go to, where it's quite literally, you will see the person standing there, and it's literally, they're not even looking at the audience, they're just reading off the PowerPoint.
I can read. Tell me more.
But then you'll find you're sat in a massive auditorium, right? And then you're sat, for example, at the back, and there's so much crammed onto the screen. It's almost like you're trying to read 0.8 font from the back of the auditorium. It's just,
Oh, I like the ones where they use it as like a story guide. So they'll have like pictures, right? A picture, and then they're talking, and they're the source of information, and the picture is kind of like the root of that. Those are my favorites. And I'm like, it shouldn't take you longer to make your presentation, like the visual digital part of your presentation, than it is for you to plan what you're going to say. Because what you have to say is like the part that's for you, especially now, like AI can make your presentation. Right?
Exactly. So, and I think, that's why presentation, ironically, coming back to the soft skills aspect, it is a soft skill, because it's about showcasing what selling something, getting buy-in for something that you need to sell, selling your skills, selling what you've got to offer. And I think it's really important that more and more of these skills that people will need in their lives are brought in. And I think one of the things that's probably missing from that piece, albeit we do it here in the UK, is languages, right? We have languages. I learned French when I did school, and my daughters still do it as well, but I've never put French into practice. I've only ever been to France twice in my life. The last time was 1999, right? Literally a different century. Like having more opportunity to learn some of these languages and being able to, communicate with people from around the world. And there's a question as well as to why was it French that we were given? Is it just because it's the neighboring country, right? Where you could probably argue that maybe it should have been Mandarin or Spanish or something, that a language that is probably more popularly spoken around the world.
Oh, I can speak to this because here we have two official languages, right? So we have English and French are our two official languages in Canada. And so if you were from Eastern Canada, like I went to a conference last October in New Brunswick, which is like Eastern Maritimes, Atlantic Ocean, Eastern Canada. And the amount of educators there that would flow fluently between English and French was so incredible. And I'm so incredibly jealous because I live more over towards the west in Alberta. And we have to take French and in school. Okay. And different schools do it differently. Like I taught at a school where they started in kindergarten. When I was going to school, we started in grade 4. So I was 8 or so, 9. But you only had to take it for 3 years. And then it was optional. So because I was interested in other things, drama and music, I didn't take French because I didn't have time in my schedule. And that was it. That was the extent of my entire French education was 3 years. But I live in a country where we have 2 official languages, one of those being French. And it's so strange to me. But here where we live in St. Albert, there are so many French immersion schools. So you can choose for your children to be in a French classroom. So they're fully immersed, which I think is really interesting too. But I kind of wish it was more of a thing that we got just from like a super young age.
Wow, we have deviated. We've really ripped up that script, haven't we?
We do whatever we want here.
Yes, indeed. But we have news. We have exciting news. We have
We're so
very,
excited.
very exciting news. Yes, indeed.
We're reuniting.
Yeah, finally, after well, it'll be nearly 6 years, won't it? By next year.
Yes.
But the big news is we are going to South Africa. Yes.
Yes.
We really need to market this as we are taking EdTech AM on the road, isn't it?
We're taking it on the road. We need to do a podcast episode from South Africa where we are sitting in the same room.
Yes, indeed. In Johannesburg.
Yes.
We will make that happen.
We need to.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
Kevin Sherman doesn't know it yet, but he'll be paying for that.
It's happening. It's happening. Maybe we can have him in. Do you think he wants to sit between us? We can just shift. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. We can just shift over like this and make room.
Yeah. I don't quite know. We'll have to run that by him offline.
Get back to
But yes, both of us will be at Innovate EDU in Johannesburg in May.
I know. I get to talk about microbits and Canva. I'm so excited.
Oh, absolutely.
My two favorite things.
Yeah, definitely. This will be my third Innovate EDU. So my second time in Joburg. So I first went to Joburg in 2023. Then I did Innovate EDU 2024 in Cape Town, and now returning back to Joburg. So really excited for that, and seeing the Johannesburg-based educators, which are fabulous.
I'm so excited.
I've been fortunate, and this is what I said after Innovate EDU 2023 is I've been fortunate in my life to have attended over the last 10 years an awful lot of conferences. And this January will be my 20th BET show, which is just mind-boggling to me, because I still remember going to my first one. And the fact that I went to Innovate EDU first time internationally, and I made a big, massive thing about how I am now an international speaker. But I have never been to a conference coming out feeling so inspired like I did when I went to Innovate EDU. It is fascinating. Like the challenges they had at the time in South Africa, and probably still have somewhat today, things like load shedding, where you don't have electricity for hours upon hours of the day. And this was in 2023 as it was then. And the fact that they just get on with things, and some of the stuff that they were doing, like I was like, we have this Western painted mindset of like Africa is the third world country, right? Whenever you see the companies like Oxfam and Save the Children and all that, you're always seeing these images of African children who are super stick thin, who don't have food, and it's just £20 a month will feed a family and all of that stuff. And then you go out there and you see some of the stuff that these educators are doing across the entire broad spectrum of wealth that you've got there, in terms of very wealthy people, and then people who literally are the people who come on those adverts. And then you see the fascinating things that you do. And I came out of there probably learning a lot more than I went out to train. It was phenomenal.
Oh, all of that. I'm so excited. I can't wait to see how it's done in a completely different place in the world, because educators are thriving just like they would anywhere else. And I can't wait to learn from them.
Yeah. So that's May 2025. And if you're around Johannesburg or nearby, or if you fancy flying over to Johannesburg, then do go to the website. I think it's www.innovateedu.co.za.
Yeah, we'll pop it in the show notes.
Yes, they will be in the show notes. And I think there are still early bird tickets. And so please do go, because you'll make Kevin Sherman very happy.
Yeah, and us too. Come hang out.
Yes, indeed, for sure.
All right. And so on the topic of us, what have you been up to lately? What is new? What have you been doing? You're very
Oh,
busy.
wow. So, yeah, like I said, it has been a very busy month since episode 3. Google Champions Energizer was straight after the Amsterdam Innovator Academy. So, been a while since I've been to a Google office back again, and got to connect with some wonderful Google champions from around the UK and all of the new innovators, those who came from Chicago, UK-based folks, and then also the UK folks from Amsterdam. It was so great to just connect, learn a whole new thing, learn all about all of the new fancy stuff coming to Google Workspace. You had Google Vids, lots more Gemini stuff coming in. But also just it was amazing to just hear from some of the wonderful community and the things that they're doing in their schools. We had a few sparks that were delivered from other Google champions, which are always fun.
Yeah.
And just it was such a fun networking evening, which was really great. I also had the Canva Droptober event, which we celebrated in the UK. That was really, really cool. And I did a webinar with Clever. So Clever are a company who provide a single sign-on solution for schools, helping students and staff and students to log on to platforms a lot more safely and securely, and did a cybersecurity webinar with Clever. So please do go check that out. It's on my socials. We'll put a link in the show notes. We launched the South Asian Educators Network. So really helping to build that presence of diversity and equity here in the UK, for especially for South Asian educators. Where I live, I'm Indian ethnically. Where I live, we have a massive South Asian educator community, and we had a launch of the new network for that, which is great. And then we're going to have there's one of the local schools who do a leadership for all dinner, so that's coming in February. So if you're around London, do sign up for that. It's Leadership for All Dinner, which is a great networking event with a great Asian dinner, which is always a good thing.
Awesome.
And then finally, I went to the Schools and Academy show again in Birmingham, which was another wonderful event. It is an EdTech event, so kind of like Bet, they have a little EdTech space, but you can also buy lawnmowers and school dinners and minibuses as well. So it's everything school related. Yeah, you get everything at that event. But again, it's a wonderful event to just connect with some of the wonderful educators that we've got here in the UK community. But yeah, it's been a busy I say extracurricular month for me, because all of this stuff is stuff that I'm doing outside of my day job almost.
Yeah, you're still going to work.
In addition to, I do. There's that running joke: is Abid ever in work? Yes, I am in work a lot more than I used to be. So yeah, work is happening in addition to all of this crazy stuff.
You're just a busy
How
guy.
about yourself, Meagan?
Okay, well, I just got really excited when you said minibus, because if you do not know this, it is my life goal to become Miss Frizzle from the Magic School Bus. So that would just kind of be another step in the right direction, I'm feeling. I'm not going to lie. So I've been off. We're going to talk about our year in review, and I've been off for a few months. And every so often it does come up, like, if I had a minibus, could I drive around and bring the STEM programs to the children of my neighboring communities? I think maybe. Would they let me? That remains to be seen. We'll see. First, we need to acquire a minibus. So when you're at Bet, because I know you're going soon. Is it Bet that has the minibuses?
No,
No.
but I wouldn't be surprised if
Okay,
they
well,
do.
if you see a minibus, let me know. That's all I'm saying. Yeah.
All
right.
We're always welcome to sponsorship here on EdTech AM. So if you want to sponsor the EdTech AM minibus to take us on said roadshow, then by all means.
Or if you want to sponsor me to come to Bet and pick up my own minibus, also wouldn't say no to that.
Yes, 100%.
And then we could be reunited sooner, so that would be nice too.
Indeed, indeed.
on the topic of podcasts, I have started another podcast because I like to talk. So I started my own podcast called Learn Out Here. And this one is still tech related, but a little bit more skewed to the world of STEM education and inquiry learning, with a little bit of kind of outside. How do you get outside with your kids and bring the tech with you? So if you are a science teacher, a STEM teacher, or if you just like to integrate that into whatever it is you're teaching, definitely check it out. I've got 2 episodes so far. I'm trying to do weekly. Occasionally, my life gets in the way a little bit because of my 2 small humans and, Christmas and all of that. But episode 3 should be coming out soon. So yeah, that's one thing. And then while I am not as busy as you, I am about to be, because I am running some science curriculum sessions for Alberta Professional Learning Consortium. So that is starting in January on Thursdays. So if anybody is listening and is an Alberta teacher, sign up. I'm going to put the link in the show notes, and it's also going to be in my social media coming up, because I definitely have to get on that. But in Alberta, we got a new science curriculum this year, which is really exciting. I tend to be a little bit skeptical about new curriculum. I should just say, and just leave it at that. But anyway, this one is actually, I think it's really well done. So like we were talking about skills and stuff earlier versus just like content knowledge. I feel like they did a much better job this time on supporting the skills side of things and how different realms of science are connected. So I'm going to be focusing a little bit more on inquiry and some of those presentation skills. So I'm going to do one on Canva in the science classroom. So how to create infographics and presentations specifically around science and the things that kids learn in the science class. But then also that curriculum has added 2 new units of study. So there used to be 5 and now there's 7. And one of them is the scientific method, but another one is computer science, which is really, really cool. So starting in kindergarten, it starts out with just like procedural knowledge. So step-by-step instructions and then the outcomes. But then towards grade 4, 5, 6, it gets into coding. So I'm going to be offering a couple sessions on that as well, because I know if you're not really familiar with that world or some of the tools and resources that are available, it can be kind of overwhelming. So yeah, that's one of the sessions that I'm going to be running too. So that's what I'm doing in January and February of this year.
Exciting times.
Very. Yes. Enough about us, though. What's happening in tech?
What's happening in tech? Well, social media. There's been big moves in the world of social media for sure. Blue Sky has really taken off. I guess people have taken off to the blue sky, haven't they?
It's refreshing.
Indeed. Very much feels like the good old days of a certain other micro platform that is now only known, or shall we say, the artist formerly known as Twitter.
Yes, the other place.
Indeed. And I think it's been refreshing to see, refreshing to be in control of the algorithm again.
Yeah.
Being able to design your own algorithms, being able to choose who it is you really want to hear from and see. And it feels like the good old days, really, of the excitement of how, real professional development and connection through social media, which is really great. I think it still very much is early days yet, so there's a lot. If you're listening and you're not on Blue Sky already, definitely do join. It is really nice there, and there's a massive EduSky community. So hashtag EduSky, EduSky, which is wonderful. And Nagam has actually asked in the chat, do you recommend Blue Sky for connecting with educators? And 100%. Yes, absolutely. Definitely.
It's so nice to have the feed filled with educators that I know and follow, and it's a little bit more tailored like you can tailor your feed, and then it actually is showing up right now. So I'm able, like, the professional development has grown for me, like you said, with the old Twitter days. The only thing I'm missing is that bookmark section so that I can save a bunch of ideas and then occasionally remember to look at them.
Yes, and I think the Blue Sky developers have been really open to like taking all of that feedback. And I know one of the biggest requests are bookmarks. And so at the moment, people are using, shall we say, innovative ways. There's always the wonderful Wakelet for bookmarking, and yes, it is additional steps at the moment, but for the time being, until we do get an actual bookmark feature, that's one of the potential ways. But shout out to Alice Keeler, who's doing great work there with really building that EduSky community. She's got this EduSky Google Sheet with a massive list of like thousands and thousands of educators to follow. And I think one of the really great things about it has been starter packs. The fact that you can create your own starter pack of people who you recommend to follow, and you can then advertise that a starter pack out as a post, and with one click people can just follow everyone in that starter pack, and it really helps to grow that community.
That's been huge for me.
And as with all social media, the one thing I say is, consume and give back as well, because that just helps to ignite that community. So by all means consume, but share what you're doing, no matter how small it is. Just share your stuff, build your feed, build your own profile, and people will be willing to connect with you.
It's so true, because I think sometimes with social media, I mean, we talk all the time about the comparison aspect of social media. That's not new for anybody. But I think sometimes I fall with this too. You see these incredible things happening on social media, and you think that your thing maybe isn't cool enough or different enough, or somebody else has done it, but share it anyway, because nobody does these things quite like you do. And you never know who that's going to resonate with, right? And you never know who you're going to connect with because of it. So definitely share.
And one of the things I always say is, going back to all those years ago when I first started out on social media, for me, it was about, especially, and I've said this again multiple times, being the IT guy in school. It's a very lonely place. People don't really know what it is that you do other than turn things off and on again. And so it's like, for me, social media was about sharing what we do, sharing what it is that we do, breaking down those four walls of the organization or of the classroom, and being able to showcase what it is that you do to a much wider audience, right? Because everything that you do in school is so powerful, and it still fascinates me to this day, things that we take for granted that you just do without even thinking, and you show somebody else and it's just like, wow, I had no idea you could do that. And the fact that you can inspire from a 300 character post is just fascinating.
It's really cool. It's really cool. And I like you've done a really good job of connecting the two realms of IT and educators. Like, you're like the fun little bit in the middle, right? It's nice. And it's like, I appreciate that.
I remember a phrase that my college tutor told us when she was teaching us about operating systems and how the hardware communicates with the software. And so you have the operating system level, but how does the hardware communicate? You need an interface, which is the drivers. And it's just, we were all, mind boggled lost. And she's like, think of it like a sandwich. You've got your bread and you've got your filling. But when you put the bread and the filling together, it's very dry. You need an interface, which is your butter or your margarine. That's the place that we fit in. Nice. We're the interface, where we break down the barriers between technical IT and instructional IT, or instructional technology, instructional learning, for example, and fuse that together to, right, how can this pot of people who don't want to talk to this pot of people start talking to each other and understanding each other, understanding.
Like, I don't know what you do, and you don't know what I do, and we just like,
exactly that.
It's so true. And then we just stop getting mad at each other for the things that we do that the other person doesn't understand.
Yeah.
Like, why did you block my website? Yeah, that kind of stuff.
Lots of fun and games with websites and blocking, but that's another argument for another time.
Day, or maybe never.
What's happening in the world of web browsers? Right. Yeah. This one has annoyed me. So episode 1, we talked about the wonderful Arc browser by the browser company, who were a really innovative company are a really innovative company. They're still around. But they launched a browser called Arc, which has really taken the niche the niche followers of the internet by storm. It's kind of like it's developed a real niche for really techie geeky people like myself, where it's a really nice browser to use. It's very sleek. It has features that most other browsers don't, and it's been great. And suddenly they went quite quiet, and the CEO put a video on YouTube saying, "Hey guys, here's an update, what we've been up to." And he talked about how Arc is never going to be the next Google Chrome. And, he talked about how his mother is never going to use Arc, and maybe his relatives are never going to use Arc because it's too hard to get them away from Google Chrome, which, let's be honest, I'm not surprised. Google are quite a big company. They've got quite a big marketing power behind them. Yeah. And, people are going to use it. But that doesn't mean that Arc didn't have a place to exist. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, it seems as though they haven't officially said it, but it seems as though they've unofficially decided to just kind of decide to put Arc to one side and now create a second browser, which is kind of like, okay, but I took all of my workflow out of Google Chrome or whatever other browser I was using and moved to Arc. Yeah. And now you want me to kind of take my workflow and move to this other browser, which is... Now what gets even more confusing was in his initial video, he said, we're going to launch a second browser, which is a lot more simpler than Arc, right? And it was kind of like, okay, but then you could have just made a simple mode to Arc.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. And so it was kind of like, fine, okay. So you now want to do a second browser. And then as they've only talked once very briefly as to what this second browser, so they've decided to call it DIA, D-I-A. And it's a browser that kind of browses for you. At least that's the way they're marketing it. And I'm kind of scratching my head at this point, thinking to myself, this doesn't seem like a simpler browser. Right. This seems like, if anything, it doesn't seem like a web browser at all. And suddenly you've gone away from the idea of you're building this second browser to target Joe Public to the point of where you're now trying to target an even nicher community.
Yeah, I think about like who's finding value in that, and it does seem super niche. Like my grandma is not going to want the internet to browse for her. She's going to be like, "What's happening?"
No,
right?
And it's kind of put everyone sort of in a weird space. Maybe this time next year, I'll be like, "Guess what, Meagan? You got to check out DIA. Like, it's the best thing since sliced bread."
Yeah.
But then there's also that feeling, right, where, well, you kind of dropped the ball with Arc, and fine, we all moved to DIA, and now are you going to expect us to move a third time and a fourth time?
Yeah. Okay. So this is where I have questions and maybe a little bit of like frustration, because you showed me Arc, and it from a UX perspective, it was really cool. Like the experience wise, there were a lot of things that it did better than Chrome. And I think to say that it's not the next Google Chrome, I think that that's fine. Like, do you want it to be the next Google Chrome? Because you're competing with like this really big company. And when they say things like that and then just sort of drop Arc and move on to something else, it kind of feels like they're not valuing the users that they have who really, really appreciated that browser. And then moving to a different one, and then you have a little bit of distrust there, right? Like you said, like, are you going to create a new one now? And it's hard. Yeah. because obviously people chose Arc because they valued something about it. Otherwise, they wouldn't use it.
And don't get me wrong, the browser company have done phenomenally with Arc.
Yeah.
But you're a startup, right? You're a
Yeah.
startup, and you're
Yeah,
going
that's
against
okay.
you're going against the behemoth that is Google, who've been around for
Yeah.
30 years, right?
Yeah.
Like there's
Well, not only that, there's Safari as well, and like that other Microsoft one.
indeed. And on that note, the other browser is Firefox.
Yes, and Firefox.
Which was the market lead, which was second place in the browser market behind Internet Explorer
Right.
before Google Chrome came about. And then
Mhm.
Google Chrome, as we know,
Yeah.
is now by far the market leader. Albeit there's a big place for Safari on mobile, because mobile browsing has become a massive thing, and half the world that owns iPhones uses a Safari browser.
Mhm.
And of course an awful lot of Mac users,
Yeah.
because you'll get technical people or tech savvy people, shall we say, or tech enthusiasts who will use Mac OS operating systems and then maybe use a browser like Arc or a Chromium based browser like Google Chrome.
Mhm.
But again, coming back to that Joe Public thing, the vast majority of Joe Public Mac users will use Safari,
Yeah,
right?
it's
And
not
they will
easy.
use the browser that is built in. And I think when you look at Chromium-based browsers, right, there are an awful lot of Chromium-based browsers out there that are much, much more mature than Arc. You've got Brave, you've got Vivaldi, you've got Microsoft Edge. You've got so many browsers that are out there that are based on Chromium. And the fact that Arc has had the traction it's had so far, I think is quite good.
Yeah.
But going back to Firefox, Firefox has still been around and it's still extremely popular. They still get an awful lot of fun. Google pay an awful lot of money to Firefox to be the default search in Firefox. And an exciting development in the open source world, which is really exciting, is a new browser called Zen Browser. And the difference between Zen Browser compared to something like Arc is Arc is a closed source browser, so it's not open source.
Right.
Zen is completely open source. Arc, and Brave and Vivaldi and Edge are all built on Chromium, the Chromium-based browser system. Zen is based on Firefox, and it is a very nice browser. It's very much in early days right now. I think only as of a couple of days ago it went into beta, so it's been in alpha all this time.
Okay.
It's now actually gone beta, but it's really exciting. It's really exciting. It definitely takes some cues from Arc for sure, with the look, with the sidebar. Not quite as polished yet, but I think it's exciting, and yeah, looking forward to seeing that. And I think more competition is healthy. I say,
yeah, I agree.
More competition, more choice, really. And I think we're going to talk a bit more about big tech and the power of big tech in a bit. So I think seeing more small players coming into the market is really, really exciting.
Yeah, and like you said, more choice and more different takes on features to find something that really works for you. Great.
Indeed. iOS 18.2. So we have to always get cybersecurity in any way in these episodes, and I've been having so much fun, right, with everyone. I always love to troll people when I'm at work or out and about at conferences and say, so are you running the latest version of iOS on your iPhone? And everyone will be like, yeah, I updated a few months ago. Well, guess what? They just released a new version yesterday, didn't they? Yeah. But iOS 18.2 isn't just a new version with bug fixes and updates. Yes, absolutely, it has bug fixes, but it's a big release.
Yes.
The final promised actual Apple Intelligence that they announced all the way back in June at WWDC has finally come to fruition in quite a few places in the world. Not all places in the world. iOS 18.1 brought Apple Intelligence to English US, but as someone who's from the English UK variety, I
Mhm.
finally now have access to Apple Intelligence, albeit not on my iPhone, unfortunately, because I am using an iPhone 14 Pro Max, and only the iPhone 15 and 16 upwards are getting the Apple Intelligence features. However, I do have a MacBook, and that MacBook is the M2 MacBook, and that will be in the features. I haven't actually played too much on them, but
I haven't yet either.
it'd be interesting to see. But
Yeah.
it was a very AI heavy launch. Let's just put it that way. And yes, Apple have been late to the market for sure. And
I'm excited to find out why.
yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how this plays out.
Mhm.
How now that it's more in the hands of the masses of people who are using Mac OS and iOS, it'll be interesting to see. And they have got a massive collaboration with ChatGPT,
Right. Yes.
which is so you've got Apple Intelligence, which uses Apple's AI models and all of the privacy and extra stuff, which Apple have been quite good at from that perspective. But then you've also got the option to then expand that AI usage to the likes of ChatGPT.
Right.
And there is a rumor that Gemini will also be coming built in to iOS in a future update. That is still rumored, whether it happens or not. But it's interesting where we've kind of gone from a world of where these big tech companies were very much in competition with each other, and they still are, right?
Yeah.
You've still got iOS versus Android, but it's that ongoing conversation about AI and what does AI rely on? AI relies on data. It relies on input from us, the human beings, and the more input it can get, the more it can learn from us, right? And so what does AI want to do? What do all of these AI companies want to do? They want to learn from the maximum user base as possible.
Yeah, they want to share their data.
So absolutely, they could, Google could absolutely gatekeep Gemini as a Google only product, or a product that you use via the web browser or something like that. But no, they have launched a Gemini app for iOS, and there is that rumor that it will be coming soon, sometime next year, as more integrated as part of the iOS operating system, which will be really, really interesting, because I think that is potentially a way forwards for benefit to Google through that utilizing and leveraging Apple's user base. Interesting to see how we've kind of gone not totally 360, but kind of maybe 270 and flipping between 180.
Yeah, even down to like I have a Google Pixel, but my parents have iPhones. So if we go on vacation together and they take photos and they put it into my shared folder, we have all kinds of issues with downloading those photos and things like that because of the Apple-ness of it. It's yeah, I'm excited. We can collaborate more. Less blurry videos.
Indeed. And we'll skip to another point on AI, about AI scrapers, and about that data that we're talking about, and how the big tech have been quite guilty this year of taking advantage of that user base. And I'm looking at you, Twitter, and at you, LinkedIn, and at you, Microsoft, about auto-enrolling your users into leveraging their data to improve your AI models.
Yes.
There's a massive ethics piece about this, isn't there? And we've talked about it on previous episodes, and I think we've talked about it a lot offline as well. We all leverage the use of AI to benefit us and do the things that we want it to do to help us.
Yeah.
And absolutely, there should be some give and take.
But it's not an equal street.
No, and you're not going the right way about it by just auto-enrolling your users. Permission and choice has to be a thing. And what was crazy with like the likes of LinkedIn was initially they didn't even give that choice. It was just there and you didn't have the choice to opt out. They've now done that. Twitter had automatically enrolled, and with Microsoft, it is very convoluted on Windows to be able to opt out of those things. And I think more and more it's becoming, really bringing up that need for more and more government regulation around AI and
Yes.
helping people to understand, there is the fascination around AI and the generation and helping us with our work and helping our students to cheat on their homework and helping us to generate images and things like that. But, the fact that we need, as the user, we are already giving away so much of our data, whether it's willingly or unwillingly. And I think there needs to be a much, much more heavier focus on helping people to understand what it is that they are giving away and then giving them the choice to be able to opt out.
And I think one of the key things that you said was helping people to understand, because I think a lot of this really takes advantage of the people who maybe they don't understand, or maybe this isn't their world and they don't pay attention to it. And it's the newest thing and they're trying it out and they're using it and they're just not aware. They're not aware of the cons and how they relate to the pros there, or they're sharing private information online and they just, again, it's just, they're not aware of how that might have effects later on down the road and things like that. And I think being open and honest and really clear about what this is being used for or not used for right off the bat, giving people the choice, people are going to say, I don't care, it doesn't matter to me. And then they'll opt in. But if you're not giving people the choice and you're being sneaky about it, again, it just really goes back to trust.
And, it's all, I think it's important to understand that, these kind of activities bring a negative piece to AI when it really shouldn't have to be that way. And, going on to the next point that we wanted to talk about, where something that we were quite excited about and seems quite useful, Notebook LM.
Yeah.
Right. And how Google have just launched a really interesting tool out there that effectively, if you haven't heard of Notebook LM, it is really fascinating, and it gives you a really great take on learning, almost, where you can take PDFs, research papers, articles, you name it, feed it into Notebook LM. And what it does is it creates a podcast for you with two hosts, not as cool as Abid and Meagan, but and they literally summarize or talk, effectively do a podcast about the data you've just fed it. And it's really great to be able to learn from be able to learn in an innovative way, rather than just read and recall sort of thing. Being able to do that, and something we just very briefly talked about today, which is going to be interesting, fascinating, and crazy at the same time, where Google literally just announced that they're now going to be able to give you the ability to interact with the AI hosts on Notebook LM, which is fascinating and crazy and scary and all of the things at the same time, but could be quite powerful as well.
Yeah, well, we were having a conversation about this and saying, how fantastic would it be if you could load some really tricky content that you're trying to learn, and then it is able to break that down for you, like the accessibility opportunities of this for maybe those of us who have a really hard time breaking down those high level concepts into smaller chunks, and even to be able to interact with it and ask it questions and have it feed back to you at the level that you're at. The opportunities for learning there are huge. But then there's the other side of it, because they haven't been clear on, if you're sharing your voice and your information and your data with this feature, what is happening behind the scenes of that. So if it was very clear that it was just a back and forth and no information is going to be used for training, I would jump on that. I'd be like, this is a great way to learn. how cool for those of us who maybe like struggled in school. If this was open even down the road and was safe for K-12 education, how cool for those kids who maybe just need to talk it out when they're learning, or need to listen to something as they're moving around outside, going for a walk, whatever. We're just able to meet so many more needs in the classroom with something like this, but it needs to be safe and it needs to be regulated, and we need to know what that information is being used for. We can't just jump in.
And what we briefly just mentioned about government intervention and regulation, an interesting move that Australia has made is how they have decided to launch a social media ban for under 16s, which raises an awful lot of questions. And for me, there are some immediate big feelings that come to mind about how it's having been flooded with social media over the last few years, and then seeing the good and the bad and the absolute ugly, and then seeing the way our children are utilizing social media, it's very easy to turn around and say, oh yes, we must ban social media and it's great. And at the same time, you also see sometimes like the health benefits of them not being plunged into that world at such a young age. But there's an awful lot of questions as to sort of how this is going to be policed, how you manage it. There are an awful lot of children who are around the world who are using social media, and it's a big question. It's a big point for question and discussion, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out going forward.
Yeah, well, I think it's a really interesting conversation as well about the fact that Australia is putting a social media ban on under 16. But, going back to big tech, right? The companies that have these social media platforms, as far as their policing and their accountability on protecting those, young kids who are on social media, it's like nothing is happening there. So now the governments are stepping in and saying, okay, well, I guess we have to ban it because there are so many negative, there are positives as well, like you said, but there are a lot of negative things that come out of being in that social media world at such a young age. So it's just a really interesting thought for me, is that who are we putting that accountability on? Shouldn't we be putting that accountability on the companies who are in charge of those platforms?
One of the things I've always argued about is, especially in the UK, we and especially working as IT in school, right? It's always, you have your block list, right, of the internet, and we need to block YouTube, and we need to block Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat and all of those things, because these are a time waste thing, and we need to keep our children focused in school, and so therefore we need to make sure that they don't go onto these sites. And I've always argued that maybe we need to think the reverse, right? Sure, there's an awful lot of time wasting stuff that can be done on YouTube, but then there's an immense amount of valuable content, learning content that can be accessed on YouTube. Likewise, social media could be used for absolute terrible activity, but there's so much value that can come out of social media as well, right? We've talked about it in this very episode. But one of the things I've always said is I've seen how much that negativity of social media plays in schools, where we hear about this child has been bullied by this child on social media, and this activity has happened, and this negative stuff has happened. And I think one of the things I've always argued for is we need to be teaching social media in schools, right? And ethical digital citizenship it of social media, how to use social media in a good way, because there's no getting away from it. It is around us. It rules our lives now. People read news on. We had it a few months ago where one of the main news channels here in the UK turned around and said they've now seen the tide turn from more people are now consuming their news content on social media than are actually watching the TV. Like, no one's got time for TV now as a fixed schedule, right? I want to be able to watch stuff when I want to watch it. And so therefore I can do that online through means of social media, through platforms such as Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, that kind of stuff. And this is so ingrained in our lives now. I think there has to be a real understanding as to the fact that we need to be teaching it, but then where in Australia they've banned it for under 16s, the fact of the matter is you've just taken that completely out of school life altogether. And at what point are they going to be learning to engage with something that is very, very ingrained in our lives now?
Yes, it's character education and digital literacy, really, right? We teach character education in school all the time, how to navigate relationships, friendships, how to speak to one another, how to criticize well and give feedback. And like, it's right in there with all of that. How do we see these things? How do we deal with the issues that come with comparison? It really just needs to be right in there because, like you said, you can't escape it.
And talking of not escaping, we are not escaping technology here in London, because in London, moving very swiftly underground, quite literally, finally we have 5G access.
Congratulations.
It's been an awful long time coming, but there's a concept meme that I always come across where you see you see pictures that people put on where everyone in the London Underground now is just with their phone in their face, sat on the train.
Oh,
And
no,
then
stop
you see, and then people always turn around and say, it's not like the good old days. And then conversely, you'll see a drawn image from the good old days where people have got broadsheet newspapers and they're just sat with their heads in the broadsheet newspaper. It's like, we haven't changed in 100 years at all. We've just replaced the newspaper with the tech.
Or everybody's just sitting across from each other, like trying not to make eye contact.
Yes, indeed. And thank you, Transport for London, for making that even more helpful now by bringing 5G access. So we can now doom scroll for our entire journey through Instagram and TikTok and whatever else we want to do. But they've finally managed to get 5G routers all the way down those hundreds of feet into the tunnels. So now you can now go along the new fancy Elizabeth line and have 4G and 5G access across the entire line.
Where you can scroll your TikTok and roast alive because there's still no air conditioning.
There's still no air conditioning. So they found out how to get the 5G signals out there, but they haven't found out how to get the heat out of the tunnels.
Well, you can't have everything, you know?
But I did read a tweet a few years ago to say air conditioning is scheduled to be coming to the Central Line in 2031.
Good to know. I will schedule my trip for then.
It was 12 years ago when I read that tweet. We're now close to 2031.
So close.
By 6 years. But yes, in 6 years' time, we will be able to have a much cooler journey, to the point where it's funny you mentioned that, because I just saw one of the redesigned the updated tube maps, and they now have the key where they have what color each line is, and they actually have a little snowflake next to each line. And I was thinking, what are the snowflakes for? And it's literally the snowflake designates which lines have air conditioning on them. Yeah.
Yep. So we're gonna plan
Welcome to 2024.
Where it's like, okay, I have to go this way and then this way and this way so that I can be comfortable.
I will totally admit I have strategically planned my journey so that I had air-conditioned lines during the summer.
Oh, what a time to be alive. We just have everything we need. We have AI and air conditioning.
Indeed. Well, we still don't have air conditioning in our homes in the UK, just because we have like 3 weeks of summer, and that's an awful lot of thousands of pounds worth of investment for air conditioning.
Like, so do we, but we have definitely gotten air conditioning. We got it last year. It's a lifesaver. Oh my gosh.
Who knows? Maybe one day.
Yeah, that's okay.
But so we're wrapping up 2024. We're
Yes.
wrapping up EdTech AM for 2024. We need to wrap up the world of tech for 2024. So
Much. Here we go.
let's see what happens. So both in our lives and in the world of tech. January was certainly a busy one. From a geeky perspective, January is when CES, the Consumer Electronics Show or Entertainment Show, I can never know, that takes place in Las Vegas. Hopefully one day I'll get to go out to CES and see all the new funky. And if you've never heard of CES, it is a show for tech geeks. Like they have all of these. It takes place in Las Vegas every January, and the big tech companies. You've got your Samsungs and your Sonys and the Huawei's and the LGs will all come out there, but they will come out with crazy concept idea tech. So I know I can't remember if it was last year or the year before. LG had quite literally a box which was kind of like I'd say it kind of resembled like a violin case, for example, or a sort of a tripod case. But you put that on your stand, and the TV literally folds out of the case. Right? This is the kind of fascinating concept tech that you will get. So they had like you've got phones. So we already have foldable phones, but you have phones which are just literally a folding slab of glass. Well, I say glass, very bendable glass to the point of it's hard plastic, right? But it's literally like it's not metal; it's just the glass, and it's kind of, very Minority Report kind of thing. So
that would last 45 seconds with me.
Yeah, you'll have all of the crazy Will Smith iRobot style cars, right? So you'll have Mercedes that have a car. I remember a few years ago at CES, Mercedes showed off a car that the front of the car was an LED projector, and it would self-drive. And the minute it saw a pedestrian on the pavement waiting to cross the road, the car would stop and the projector would project a zebra crossing onto the road for the person to then know to cross.
That's so fun.
It's just crazy. You just think to yourself, how on earth is this going to work with multiple cars on the road, right?
You're like, all right, it's going to be a zoo.
But it looks so cool.
That sounds cooler than the new Jaguar.
Yes.
I saw a
but CES, so CES will be back for January, but that's always an interesting time. And then bringing it back to EdTech, Bet 2024 was my 19th Bet show, which is still crazy to say. And that was another phenomenal show. Again, great to connect with so many educators. And yes, I think even though we've only just started talking about January, the pattern will be that AI was 2024 was the year of AI, as was 2023, probably 2022, probably 2025 as well, maybe even 2026.
Who knows?
The way it seems to be going. But that was January. February was when Google decided to introduce us to Gemini, which was basically Bard renamed.
I'm so glad they renamed it. I'm going to be honest. Bard felt weird. I like Gemini.
I don't mind. Yeah, Gemini sounds a lot better than. I think everyone collectively thought, yeah, you did a good one there, Google.
I know. I feel like they named it Bard because like they couldn't think of anything and they had to be quick. I could be wrong, but it felt like a really quick name, and I'm glad that they took the time to rename it in February. Sorry,
I am disappointed. There weren't as many Shakespeare jokes. When it came to Bard, I didn't see as many Shakespeare jokes as I hoped I'd see. But hey,
all of us kind of blocked that out in school, don't you know?
Indeed. March was
February. Oh wait, hold on. I have news because you know what I was doing in February? February is Alberta Science Olympics month. So our engineer group called APEGA, Alberta Engineers, they put on a Science Olympics for K-12 students, and it is huge. So they do one in Edmonton and one in Calgary, And that is like our entire month is just getting kids to build whatever crazy challenge they've given to us. And last year they had to make vehicles, autonomous vehicles. Actually, I say autonomous, but they could be autonomous or driven by a remote control, but you couldn't use any pre-created parts. So our students built a vehicle that can move through a simulated wetland environment, so like a marshy swamp, and it was driven by 2 microbits. So we had one microbit that was driving all of the servo motors on the car, and then they coded one microbit to remote to the other one so that they could control it. It was one of the cooler projects that we've ever done. So that was my entire life in February.
I love the STEM stuff that you bring to this. It's amazing, and I've said it before, but we need so much STEM, so much more STEM everywhere, like in education, because that it is so cool just talking about it, but then being involved in that, being able to use fascinating tools like the microbits, and then just seeing the children engage with that is just fascinating.
It's so much fun. I love being a part of it. It's my favorite.
March was a quiet month for me because it was the month of Ramadan. I kept a low profile for sure. But April was an interesting one. Gmail turned 20 years old in April.
Yes.
Which was it's interesting, like the fact that Gmail turned 20 years old in April.
I feel old.
We feel old, but the fact that Gmail was released as an April Fool's, it was released on the 1st of April.
Yeah.
But people very much thought of it as an April Fool's joke, and shout out to Google. They did a good one. I'm a Gmail user. It was it celebrated its 20 years, which was really interesting. I still remember when they released it with 1 gig of mailbox space, and I used to have a Hotmail account which came with 2 meg of space, and I remember Gmail saying you'll never have to delete your emails ever again. Well, fast forward 20 years, we are having to delete an awful lot of emails to get the promised land of inbox zero, shall we say.
That is news that we need to talk about, because guess who finally, for the first time in her life, reached inbox zero last month?
Does it not feel great?
It does. And I want to just say that I've been keeping up with it. I am at inbox zero as we speak. It is extremely exciting. Should I share how many inbox emails I deleted so that I could become inbox zero? Do we want to take guesses?
Give us your number. It
was 5,500 emails.
You've done quite well, Meagan. You've done quite well. I dealt with an inbox zero case for a former colleague of mine, who you're quite low in the 1,000 scale, let's just say.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I felt like I was fine.
Yeah, she was on 83,000 when we finally got her to inbox zero.
If I was 83,000, I wouldn't have bothered. 5,000 felt manageable.
Well, it's surprising, and the fact that I've been inbox zero for a while. What I've been doing is I've literally been going through all of those archived emails and the emails that I've put as labels and stuff like that, to actually getting around to actually deleting emails from your Amazon product is going to be delivered today from 2012. I'm like, yes, I don't really need to know about my Amazon product that got delivered in 2012.
I'm not gonna lie, once I got to 2019, I stopped reading them. I was like, select all, delete, select all, delete. I'm like, this might come back and bite me later, but I'm willing to take that.
Indeed. But inbox zero was yes, Gmail turning 20. Sorry, was a great time, but inbox era. I think that's a great that's a great idea for us for a future episode of EdTech AM, isn't it? And
Yes.
more on that in a moment. But
Yes.
off to May. I went to Cape Town for
Yes, you
Innovate
did.
EDU, which was wonderful. I've already talked about that, but it was another phenomenal conference.
Yep.
And then we had Canva Creates in May, where Canva dropped an awful lot of wonderful features.
It was so
And
fun.
the big glow up, as they say, where they completely changed the Canva interface. And the big news for me, and I still don't know to this day how that happened, was I was number 6 in the world to get the Canva glow up. And I have no idea how that happened, but yes. And shout out to Jade,
That on your LinkedIn.
who is the Canva community manager for the UK, who very kindly sent me a T-shirt with "I am number 6."
That's
which
incredible.
which was wonderful. Yes,
Oh
indeed.
my gosh, I didn't know this.
Yep.
That is so cool.
Yep.
Wow.
Still no idea how that happened, because
I'm impressed.
everyone around me was sharing their thing, and I was like, okay, cool. And I went in, and it's like, you're number 6, and I'm like, okay, yeah, right.
I was probably number 6 million.
Indeed. June was a big one for me. I went to ISTE in June, my first time to the States. 5 years later than I'd, 4 years later than I'd planned, because we all know what happened in 2020.
Anaheim.
But that was absolutely wonderful, going to ISTE, finally being able to meet in person lots of wonderful people that I have collaborated with over the years, which was wonderful. And I am very excited to hopefully return to ISTE in San Antonio in June again in 2025. Still haven't figured out how that's going to happen, but we'll make it happen somehow. Once again, those sponsors who are listening.
Yes.
You know where we are.
You know where we are. Yeah, I had a big June as well, because in June I made the jump to leave the classroom after 10 years. So that was a big, interesting, exciting, scary, everything. That was huge.
Very, very scary but exciting move.
Okay.
For sure.
Yeah, it's been fun. It's been a fun year so far.
Indeed. July was a big month in the world of tech. So let's get the sad news out of the way first. Microsoft decided to announce the end of Flipgrid, which or Flip as they called it, which was a sad time for quite a lot of educators. Again, I don't want to hate on big tech too much, because we're using big tech for this very podcast, but we as educators especially, we get really involved with these products. We use them for the benefit of our children, and we saw it last year with Jamboard, which officially sunsetted later this year, and then we lost Flipgrid as well. And it's such a shame that we have to, big tech doesn't see the value of the education piece, and it's just kind of where the commercials come in. That was a sad one for educators.
It's true. And like, we spend so much time building up our, you teach similar things. Maybe if you're teaching the same grade every year, and you build up your templates. So in Flip, you have your templates with your descriptions and everything ready to go. And maybe every year you wipe those videos so that you can do it again next year. And then when it is gone and you have to find something else and reset that up, it's kind of one more thing sometimes. It can be hard.
Definitely. But lots of tools have come into its place. There's Canva, there's Padlet, which are trying to sort of fill that void, which is wonderful. And then July was a big one around the entire world. We had Crowdstrike. And for those of you who've missed it, I wrote an article on Crowdstrike and what education can learn from Crowdstrike, where effectively half of the world who are using CrowdStrike, and we found that an awful lot of big companies around the world were using CrowdStrike. Their systems came to a grinding halt because of a faulty update, or a buggy update, shall we say, that they decided to roll out to every system in the world. That brought it down to a grinding halt. It was everyone noticed it. Let's just say it that way. We've seen all of the pictures on social media of airports with the big blue screen of death on their departure monitor screens. And yes, what a time to experience. And I think go back and read my article. There's an awful lot to learn in education as to just how much we rely on IT and how much of a part it plays in our lives. So that was a big piece.
That was a big one.
Indeed, for sure.
Yeah.
But the big back to school in September was a big one. But we can't forget August. Something very, very big happened in August.
Episode 1.
Yes, episode 1 of EdTech AM. And we do need to wrap up because I think we're going as long as we did episode 1. But
yes,
we have a big year to to wrap
talk
up.
About everyone.
Yes, indeed. We launched EdTech AM in August, and the fact that we're still going on for episode 4, I think we've done quite well.
Yes, we have. So much.
And we've got lots more exciting stuff planned for EdTech AM in 2025. Indeed.
Yes, stay tuned on that. We've got some cool tricks up our sleeve for 2025.
Yes, indeed. September, October, Meagan, anything happen in your life, September, October?
Well, September was back to school at the Alfano household, so that was a bit of a blur. And then October, I went to Kelowna. We talked about this in a previous episode, but I went to Kelowna for their EdTech conference for Okanagan teachers. So that was really fun. Yes. Oh, and Droptober. Yes,
Droptober. That was a brilliant one. More fun, crazy updates for Canva. Really exciting ones. Definitely go to canva.com/Droptober, to see all of those updates. And Canva have just actually announced that Canva Create will be returning in April 2025. So if you're fortunate enough to be able to get to Los Angeles, then I'm sure it's going to be a fascinating one in person. I know that I will be watching online.
Yeah, me too.
Unless, again, one of those sponsors would like to come and take us to Los Angeles, we're always open to that.
we are big Canva fans, no doubt about it.
Indeed, but we can't forget the big tech launches again, can we? September, October was the new iPhones, and then October, November was the new MacBooks, the M4 MacBooks, and the new M4 Mac Mini, and then that takes us over to December.
And here we are. Wow. We've gone literally full circle.
And so very much counting down the days to a very much well-deserved and needed break, for sure.
So close. How many days do you have left before you're on a break?
I have one more week. So my final day is next Friday.
Oh, good. I'm so excited. That's us as well.
I've got a few days to pack, and then I am flying off to Qatar.
Oh, that's so fun.
Break. Yes.
Nice.
So definitely getting away from the cold. Into much more sunnier climes. Nice. Really looking forward to that. Hopefully flu and cold free, because I've had a very rough couple of months with flu and cold. So and then ready to jump back into conference mode soon after with Bet in January 2025.
Lots to look forward to in 2025. It'll be great. Well, indeed. I will not be escaping the cold. I will, but that's okay. I'm okay. I've come to terms. It's okay. It's dark at 4:15. I'm fine. Doing fine.
Yes. We were just talking at home about SAD, seasonal affective disorder, and how, like, yes, I'm very much looking forward to going to work in the light and coming home in the light again.
Yes. Yes.
Very
And your
much.
sunny break to Qatar will be so fantastic.
Yes, indeed. Definitely. Very much looking forward to that.
Good.
But we have one final bit of exciting news to talk about. We will be back in 2025, absolutely, with our regular podcasts, but we're also bringing some special episodes of EdTech AM in 2025, starting off with a and I've literally just thought of this in my head right now. Name to be confirmed, but a Canva extravaganza, I think.
A Canva extravaganza?
Canva extravaganza.
Canva extravaganza.
Yes. So
about this.
Definitely keep your eyes peeled on all of the socials and on our website, edtecham.org, for more news on that. Coming early 2025.
Yes. And if you get a message from one of us, read it.
Yes, indeed. Definitely. Because that is going to be an exciting one. And I am looking forward to that one.
Oh, I know. Stay tuned, everybody. It's going to be great.
Yeah, indeed. Well, Meagan, it's been great. Episode 4 in the bag.
Yes.
2024 in the bag, almost.
We did it. We did a whole, this is good.
Yes.
As always a pleasure.
Indeed. And we will see everyone again in 2025. Have a great holiday, everyone.
All right. Bye, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
See you later.